Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you out to this meeting of the Flagler County Planning and Development Board. The first item on our agenda is the roll call. Madam Secretary.
Michael Boyd.
Here.
Mark Langelo.
Here.
Anthony Lombardo.
Here.
Michael Goodman. Here. Ron Long.
Here.
We do have a full quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Would you all please stand with us and pledge the flag? Pledge the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You get the idea.
That was embarrassing. All right, the next item is the approval of our April 8th regular meeting minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. This is a quasi-judicial process. The audience should refrain from clapping, booing, or shouts of approval or disapproval to avoid potential legal ramification and possible overturning of a decision by the courts. A public hearing must be fair in three respects: form, substance, and appearance. Time limits will be observed. The staff has 10 minutes for their presentation. The applicant has a 15-minute presentation time unless the time is extended by consensus of the board. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker unless they're speaking for a group, and then they have 5 minutes. The applicant has a rebuttal time, and closing staff comments for 10 minutes each. Item number 4 is quasi-judicial, requiring disclosure of ex parte communication. Does any member of the board have anything to speak about?
None.
Seeing none, this is item number 4, project number 20250300017, an application for review in the PUD Plan Unit Development District. Ms. Simone.
Good evening, Simone Kenny, planner. This is an application for review to amend the PUD development agreement and site development plan for Gardenside Phase 2 at Ormond Station. This development is located down in Hunter's Ridge, north of Airport Road. The applicant submitted an application on behalf of the owner, U.S. Capital Alliance, to amend the PUD development agreement for the Gardenside Phase 2 at Ormond Station and site development plan. The Gardenside Phase 2 was previously approved through the adoption of ordinance number 2024-02 for the development of 89 single-family residential lots on approximately 33 acres. The amendment to the PUD was prompted by the owner's desire to change the minimum rear setback language in the PUD text and in the site data table on the site development plan from 20 feet to 10 feet. The intent is to keep the dimensional requirements of the PUD consistent with other recently approved subdivisions within the Hunters Ridge DRI, and thereby not impede the future home builder, which is D.R. Horton's standard design plans. For example, Gardenside Phase 1 and Groveside both have 10-foot minimum rear setbacks, and D.R. Horton is the home builder in both of these subdivisions. The reduction of the minimum required rear setback will not impede the future homeowners association from maintaining stormwater drainage. There's also a 25-foot wide common area tract behind all the lots to provide buffer between the lots and the conservation tract. And then finally, while the reduction of the minimum rear setback does increase the overall buildable area of each lot, the maximum impervious lot coverage of 65% is not being changed. So again, to summarize, this is an 89-lot single-family subdivision located in the Hunters Ridge DRI on approximately 33 acres. The site development plan was approved by the board in March of last year, and they have received preliminary plat approval as well, which was approved in June of last year. So it's only section 5.3 of the PUD agreement, which calls out the site development requirements, including the rear setback, which is currently at 20 feet. And again, all the other recent subdivisions in Hunters Ridge, including Groveside, Gardenside Phase 1, Brookside, Ridgeside, Oakside, all have a 10-foot rear setback, and the home builder building in all of these subdivisions have designed for that 10-foot rear setback. The minimum impervious area will not change, and again, the HOA will not lose access to maintain drainage. So your options as the board are to recommend approval to the Board of County Commission to amend the Gardenside Phase 2 at Ormond Station PUD development agreement and site development plan minimum rear setback, or you can recommend denial, or you can request a continuance of the request to a time and date certain. And with that, I will close out, awaiting any questions or comments from the board, and submit my report for the record.
Thank you, ma'am. Any member of the board have a question for staff? Yes, sir.
So the density is the same?
Yeah, the number of lots are not changing. Oh, could you repeat the question into the microphone for the record?
The density of the density of the subdivision is the same?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, would the applicant wish to come forward, make a statement? No? Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I actually do have a question. I was waiting if Kim was going to come up first. So when I looked at the original picture in it, I wasn't sure which one it was, but then I saw the picture of that you showed on the map here of the lots, that one. And you said that, and this is just maybe me being picky, but you said all of the lots have a 25-foot common area behind them, but that center section does not seem to have that. So am I just misunderstanding something, or is
No,
that?
that was just a misspeaking on my part. All the lots on the periphery of the subdivision
Okay,
have
all right.
access for
That's-
maintenance.
Because I think the reduction of the setback literally is something we're dealing with on other issues right now tonight, and I don't see a problem with it. I just didn't understand that comment and was trying to piece this together.
Thank you.
Thank you for the input, Kim.
Are there pools allowed in there? I mean, most likely they wouldn't put a pool in
They-
these houses, but
Right.
is there a
Yes,
setback for
they-
that as well?
Yes, there are. They could do a pool if they can fit a small pool.
I don't see a pool setback on here. Am I missing something?
I think it's just an accessory structure.
Accessory structure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions by the board? We'll open it up to public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this agenda item, please step forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comments and go to the board.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a recommendation to the county commission to approve this.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 is also quasi-judicial, requiring ex parte communication. Any member of the board have anything to report?
Nope.
Seeing none, this is project number 202503019, a variance in the R1 district. Ms. Simone.
This property is located at 117 Hernandez Avenue up in the Hammock. The future land use is residential low-density rural estate. The zoning is R1 rural residential. Most of the property is not located in a special flood hazard, but the sort of along the front property line is slightly located within the AE flood zone. The soils are all Bimini sands, and there are no wetlands on the property. So this property is described as 2 lots, technically, Lot 28 and 29 of Block 5 of the Artesia subdivision. The owner applied for a variance following a final inspection for a single-family dwelling. During the inspection, the inspector noticed that a fence had not been included on the building permit and that appeared to exceed the 6-foot height limitation in the rear and side setbacks of our code. While the owner informed staff that she thought the fence was included in permitting for the single-family dwelling, it was not shown on the approved site plan. This is the site plan that was submitted for the variance application. Staff determined that the height of the fence was in some areas 8 feet and in the southwest corner 12 feet. Staff then informed the owner that the height of the fence was in violation of our code and would have to be cut down to the maximum allowed 6 feet in the side and rear setback and to 4 feet in the front setback, or a variance would be required. Because the variance was then applied for, providing staff with a mechanism to track progress of the violation remediation, the CEO was issued for the single-family dwelling, and staff also informed the owner that should the variance request be denied, the fence would have to be cut down to meet the code requirements, or a code case and subsequent enforcement actions would be initiated. And here you can see that 12-foot portion of the fence. The owner justified the request by stating that the elevated height of the house created a higher sight line and that an 8-foot fence provides for more privacy. At the April TRC meeting, staff inquired as to the purpose of the 12-foot portion of the fence in the southwest corner, and the owner clarified that the neighbor to the southwest, located at 114 and 116 Sanchez Ave, has a chicken coop, and that the chickens would often fly over the fence and enter the property and occasionally the house. So the purpose of the 12-foot portion of the fence was simply to prevent the neighbor's chickens from entering the property. And here you can see the remainder of that 8-foot portion of the fence. So just to go back and clarify, along that rear property line, the maximum allowed fence height as determined by our code is 6 feet. And then along the side property line, it is 6 feet, just until you come up to 25 feet off the property line. Then it's considered the front setback, and the maximum allowed height is 4 feet. So again, to summarize, the lot is 10,000 square feet in size, lots 28 and 29 of Block 5, Artesia subdivision. It is a lot of record, and so the request specifically for a 6-foot height, fence height variance in the rear and right setback, and then a 4-foot fence height variance in the front setback on the right side. This is a after-the-fact variance request, and up until this point, no comments or objections have been received. So again, back to reading the variance criteria into the record. Variance criteria, number 1, asks that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. The subject property is a lot of record, having been platted prior to the adoption of the Land Development Code and being undersized for the R1 residential district. And to the point of the owner, the final floor elevation of the single-family dwelling does sit over 4 feet above the adjacent grade, so it's slightly lifted. Guideline 2 asks that such conditions were not created by the affirmative actions of the applicant. And then based on the applicant's assumption that the fence was included in the building permit for the single-family dwelling, we can assume they have acted at all times in good faith. Guideline 3 asks that the variance, if granted, would not cause substantial detriment to the public health, welfare, safety, and morals of the community, or impair the purpose and intent of this article. Staff determined that the primary concern for regulating fence height is protecting view sight lines for surrounding property owners. The fence sits on the right side and rear property lines, and while it does abut up to the front property line, the front property line is located approximately 50 feet from the edge of road of Hernandez Ave due to the 100-foot right-of-way width of Hernandez Avenue. Additionally, no property owners have complained since the fence was constructed or since public notice was sent for this hearing. Guideline 4 requires that no variance may be granted for use of land or building that is not permitted, and fences are permitted in all residential districts. And finally, it asks that the variance, if granted, be the minimum variance necessary to alleviate the hardship. And staff determined that the 12-foot corner of the fence could be the minimum relief necessary to alleviate the hardship, in this case, chickens flying over the fence, and that keeping the remainder of the fence at 8 feet is intended to maintain uniformity and aesthetic of the fence, rather than having it decrease from 12 feet down to the 6 and then down to the 4 feet in the front setback. So your options as the board are to find that all the variance criteria as listed in the guidelines have been met and therefore approve project 2025030019 for a 6-foot variance from the maximum allowed 6-foot fence height in the side and rear setback, and a 4-foot variance from the maximum allowed 4-foot fence height in the front setback at 117 Hernandez Avenue. Or you can find that all the variance criteria have not been met and therefore deny the project. Or you can determine that more information is needed and continue the request to a time and date certain. And with that, I will close out, awaiting any questions or comments from the board, and submit my report for the record.
Thank you, ma'am. Could you put the picture of the fence back up there, please? So the fence running both ways from the corner, the straight part of the fence, that's 12 feet?
No, so 12 feet to the top of the bump in the corner, and then when it levels out, that's at 8 feet.
Okay. Thank you. Any member of the board have a question for staff?
I just want to clarify that 8 feet is running all the way up on the picture that you have with the red line drawn? Yeah, that's 8 feet all the way up to that line up in the front, correct?
Correct.
Okay, we'd invite the applicant to come forward if they wish to make a statement. Come forward and state your name for the record, please, sir.
My name is Robert Lacombe, here on behalf of Geraldine Anderson, the owner of the property. I believe the young lady covered all of the requirements and what we were actually looking for as far as the variance and the approval of it. I do have some extra pictures, if you care to see them. The pictures are of the fence looking off of the house on the back deck, which is the elevated part of the house that we have concerns about, and also some of the, can I just continue? Are in regards to what we were trying to, I guess, hide with the fence, which is the properties on the other side. The properties on the other side along the back are properties in disrepair, if you will. We had not really thought of putting a fence up until the chickens came around.
Okay. Any member of the board have a question for the applicant?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Can you help me with this? Because I'm kind of, it depends on the property, but I'm like more apt to say kind of do what you want to do, but we have rules.
I understand.
And there's a couple problems. One, the corner, that corner in there, the 12-foot, maybe that's in the picture, it explains a little better. I don't understand the whole chicken thing. I mean, that would be something that your neighbor should control, and I don't see how a little corner keeps the chickens down. But moreover, the
They can
8-foot,
fly up, they can fly up to about 8 feet.
right, but that's a
But
very little tiny corner there.
And right on the other side of that corner, when you get to the pictures, you'll
Right.
see, that's
Right.
where the chicken coop is, and that's where they.
Have you
basically
talked to
live.
him about controlling his chickens?
Yeah, it's a her, and
Oh,
she.
you know, you go on your property there, you can have a dinner out of them. But,
Yeah, we were getting eggs. It's a haphazard chicken coop. She put them in a utility trailer. That was their
right,
chicken
that's got a
coop.
roof on it?
Excuse me?
That's got a roof on it, right?
Well, that's where they go to roost, but she lets them out in a yard. She tried to control them. I'm not going to say she didn't. She put a 6-foot fence up. They were getting out of the fence. Then she put a cover over it, but then they were getting underneath the fence.
Want to put these on the
And
overhead or not?
they continued to get out.
So the 8-foot side of it, who built the fence? Are you the person?
We had somebody a fence company come and build
A
it.
fence company, and they did not know that they couldn't just build an 8-foot fence?
No,
That's,
sir.
to me,
No,
I mean,
so, we have to take some responsibility for this because he asked us if we had a permit, and we assumed that our building permit covered the fence.
right, but
And-
the
and when he
fence
asked-
builders know heights of fences, and pretty much
Right,
if they
yes,
work.
yeah, so he didn't lead me to believe, man, that me requesting an 8-foot fence was in any way out of line. I mean, he bought 8-foot fence material, and it was all available.
Because here's where, and I'd like the other guys to kind of weigh in on what my comment is here. Yeah, I'd love to say, yeah, have the fence, looks great, because it's kind of a cool looking fence, and you did, do the good neighbor rule and put the ugly side to your side. So why won't the next guy come by and then everybody say, I want to put an 8-foot fence in, and we got crickets jumping over our fence, and well, we'll go up to 12 foot, you know, I mean, we can use
I completely
we can use the
understand- I
animal
completely
thing on the other
understand
side
your
all day long
perspective
in
of
every
this
lot.
With, you know, you have rules and everybody should needs to follow the rules.
Yeah, and I understand again, if I lived there, I agree with you, I'd want to have an 8-foot fence. But if our rules say you can't do it, and we let you do it, then what do we do the next guy who comes around? And he said, well, I want an 8-foot fence. Another guy said, well, I want an 8-foot fence. You gave it to them because they said there was a chicken jumping over the fence, you know? I mean, so how do you square with that? That's what I want to understand. How do I walk away and say, we did the right thing?
Okay, so if I could give you an argument, one of the things that caused us to realize that an 8-foot was going to be a lot more appropriate than a 6-foot is if we put a 6-foot fence up there, it would have served no purpose for us being elevated on the deck in the backyard. Now, remind you, the fence is only along the back and on the garage side of the property. As if you're facing the property, it'd be the right-hand side of the property. So it's basically offering a significant amount of privacy for us if we occupy the backyard, which is a decent-sized backyard. You know, we could set up, you know, a shuffleboard thing or whatever back there, you know, and enjoy the backyard. But primarily, if we're on the deck, and if that's a 6-foot high fence, we have a clear shot into the properties in the back there. And they're less than pretty properties. They're just dilapidated pieces of property. And actually, you know, we're just trying to offer ourselves a little bit of privacy. In argument to that, you know, the 8-foot thing, you know, if a neighbor or another person in the subdivision was to put up an 8-foot fence because they saw that we had an 8-foot fence and they used the same kind of an argument, it's a fair argument if you ask me.
It's what?
It's a fair argument to say that we're trying to just achieve privacy for ourselves. And at the same time, you know, I think we're offering privacy to the neighbors on the other side too. There is a house there that was a rental, and there was a gentleman living there for the majority of the time that we were building the house. It's since empty. He was a renter, he moved out, and I believe that house is empty right now.
So one of the things that people use in some cases is vegetation screening, like podocarpus and bamboo, non-invasive bamboo and whatever. Those bamboo, within a year, I have in my yard, they grow up 13, 15 feet in a year. Probably cheaper than the fence, but you already paid for the fence. And, you know, a fence contains animals and keeps burglars out and all that. I mean, there is a way of achieving privacy and even higher than what you have that doesn't violate a rule. And so I just want to hear what my other fellow board members, you know, have to say about it, because I'd love to say do it, you know,
Yeah.
but I just don't know.
If I could just offer one more argument to that, we really hadn't thought about putting a fence up until the chicken showed up.
Yeah, yeah.
And the idea of putting bushes or hedges or some sort of vegetative privacy, you know, that really didn't dawn on us because that wasn't going to happen overnight.
Well, I mean, let's just, I'm going to take the contrary view. Let's say you don't get what you want tonight, right? You or your fence guy would take those posts and you'd cut those down.
Correct.
And then you'd cut that right above that rail right there, you make that same looking thing. It'd just be the same fence. You wouldn't actually take it down, you just decrease the height.
Correct.
At the front yard, you know, it would be, I guess, everyone to talk about whether or not the front yard would come down, or as staff said, you're 50 feet away. But that would be, it wouldn't be you wouldn't have a fence, and you'd still have security and a fence, but it may not be 8 feet high, it would be 6 feet high.
Correct.
And then you would be able to
Correct.
put vegetation or whatever in those areas that you'd want to, again, achieve that.
Now, once again, it really isn't for security or anything like that. It was for privacy on those
No, I
two
get it.
areas. The house that you can see in one of the pictures, that was an empty lot when we started. It's since been developed.
The one immediately to the left of you?
If you're facing the house to the right.
Yeah, you're facing, okay.
I agree with you, Mark.
I agree with Mark, too.
I mean, it's, you know, I have hedges at my house which are 12 feet high, and it took about 2.5, 3 years to get there. And in this case, you are setting a bad. It's not on again?
No,
Put it
down
closer
some.
to you, Mike.
Close to me?
pull it
It's setting a bad precedent. Because now, next guy can come along and say, I want to put a 10-foot fence up. There are reasons for these height restrictions, and it's not a green space, it's just a dead-looking space, in my opinion. And I just don't see your argument.
Yeah, I concur. I concur the same. I would just see application after application after application would be coming in wanting the same exact thing as that. And even though the coming all the way up to the 8 foot coming all the way up to the front of the property line there, yeah, that to me it'd be an eyesore eventually. Yard after yard of fence like that going all the way down, and I'm sure that's why a lot of these restrictions were put in place in the first time.
You know, if I can, I used to live on the west side of the county. If you're familiar with that area out there, but the lots are bigger, and we have the same rule, I believe, on the west side. Is that right, Adam? It's the same fence rule, unless it's agricultural.
Right.
Then I think it does. But if it's your house, they have the same rule. I mean, again, out there you don't have neighbor after neighbor right close to each other, so it doesn't interfere with as much. And they have that same rule out there, but it would be less of an issue if it was out in the middle of kind of, I say, nowhere, where you have 5 or 10 acres of land and you encompass a part of it into that. But here you have neighbors right behind you. So now they're looking out their window. I'm looking at that house in your picture here with the brown window. And that fence is the height of his eave. You've basically, now again, it doesn't stop you from putting
Actually,
vegetation.
That's a 2-story house. That's
Well, I mean, I'm looking at a picture. I see a roof and I see a window in that picture.
The brown house.
Brown house.
Oh, okay, behind.
The brown
Yeah,
house.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
and they're looking basically, at a fence, the height of their roof. So it kind of closes them in a bit, So the fence is on both sides of the fence. It's a pretty looking fence, I got to tell you. That's one of the nicer looking stockade
Did a
fences
good
I've
job
seen.
aesthetically, yeah.
But anyway, it's just unfortunate, I think, because I understand where you're at. Again, I would want that if I lived there, but I would have to then say, okay, well, I can't do that, so what could I do? And I told you I would put vegetation to create that height and that, that, and I'd also hide the ugly part of my fence, and in effect, the same way, so I wouldn't see all the posts and all that, by doing such a thing. But
The aesthetics would also be better with green
Yeah.
versus brown.
yeah, and to keep those chickens out.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
If not, thank you, sir. We'll open it up to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this agenda item? Seeing no one approach, we'll close public comments and go back to the board. The board would entertain a motion.
Oh, sir, could you actually give those pictures to our secretary? Thank you.
I make a motion to deny the variance application.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman.
Item
who
number
was the-
6 is a quasi-judicial
Mr. Chairman.
item also requiring ex parte communication.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sorry, I missed the second there. Who was the second?
Oh.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything to report on item number 6?
Nope.
Seeing none, it's project number 2023030048, a variance in the R1 district. Ms. Simone.
This property is located at 55 Flagler Drive, up in the Marineland Acres subdivision in the Hammock. It's described as Lot 28, Block 9 of the second addition to Marineland Acres. The future land use is residential, low-density rural estate. The zoning is R1 rural residential. It is located in a special flood hazard, being located in the AE flood zone. The soils are primarily Pomelo fine sands, and there are no wetlands on the property, according to the National Wetlands Inventory. Again, this property is Lot 28 of Block 9 of the second addition to Marineland Acres, and is approximately 7,876 square feet. The contractor applied for a permit for the pool and pool deck in July of last year. After several revisions, a hand-drawn site plan was approved and the permit was issued. The site plan showed a 20.5 foot by 57 foot pool and pool deck located about 10.25 feet from the side property line and 10.25 feet from the rear property line, meaning the minimum required 10-foot rear setback. This property is also subject to the Marineland Acres Special Stormwater Overlay, which requires all lots to have at least 60% impervious area and to retain the volume of 2.5 inches of rainfall over the new impervious area on the site. The Special Stormwater Overlay was created in response to special drainage issues in this subdivision. In February of this year, the applicant submitted their final survey, which revealed that the rear setback was only 9.73 feet from the rear property line, triggering the variance request. Because the setback encroachment is 3.24 inches, or 0.027% of the minimum required 10-foot setback, the applicant qualified for an administrative variance, which gives staff the authority to grant variances that are less than 5% of the minimum required setback. However, notice of the request must be sent to all adjoining property owners who then have 30 days to object. If anybody does object, the request then must be approved by you, the Planning and Development Board. And we did receive an objection letter from the property of 58 Atlantic Drive, which is located directly to the northeast. Additionally, while the encroachment into the rear setback is a result of the pool becoming 0.05 feet longer in length, it was also built 0.05 feet narrower, resulting in a net decrease of the impervious area of 1.9 square feet compared to the proposed. So again, to summarize, this lot is just under 7,900 square feet. Lot 28, Block 9 of the second addition to Marineland Acres. It is a lot of record. It's subject to the Marineland Acres stormwater overlay. The specific request is for a 3.24-inch rear yard setback variance. They did qualify for an administrative variance approval, and we did receive a letter of objection from an adjacent property owner. So going through the variance criteria and guidelines, number one, asking if there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property. And this lot, similar to all of the lots in Marineland Acres, is a lot of record due to being undersized for the R1 district and having been platted prior to the adoption of the Land Development Code. While the code provides relief for side setbacks on lots of records, these do not apply to the setbacks of accessory structures or pools. Additionally, these lots are subject to the Marineland Acres overlay, which requires on-site stormwater retention and further reduces the amount of usable buildable space on each of the lots. Guideline 2 asks that such conditions were not created by the affirmative actions of the applicant, that they've acted in all times in good faith, and an encroachment of 3.24 inches most likely was simply caused by a measurement or pouring error, and the conditions were not created by the affirmative actions of the applicant. Guideline 3 asks that the variance if granted would not cause substantial detriment to the public health, welfare, safety, and morals of the community, and the variance would not. Guideline 4 asks that no variance be granted for a use of land that is not permitted. A pool is a permitted use within the R1 district. And finally, a variance if granted shall be the minimum variance necessary to alleviate the hardship, and the requested variance is the minimum relief necessary. So your options as the board are to find that all the variance criteria as listed have been met, and therefore approve project 2025030048 for a 3.24-inch rear yard setback variance from the required 10-foot rear yard setback for a pool and pool deck at 55 Flagler Drive. Or you can find that all the variance criteria have not been met and therefore deny the project. Or you can determine that more information is needed and continue the request to a time and date certain. And with that, I will close out, awaiting any questions or comments from the board, and submit my report for the record.
Thank you, ma'am. Any member of the board have a question for the
I do want to confirm, it still meets the impervious area requirement?
correct.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, we'll ask the applicant to come forward if they wish to make a statement.
The applicant is the person that denied.
You have to come to the,
Come to the microphone and state your name for the record, please.
are you the landowner?
I'm the owner, Roxana
You
Rodriguez.
applying for the variance?
Yes.
Do you wish to make a statement to us
I just want to make sure that, I mean, it's 3 inches variance, that is not going to affect anybody. I don't know why.
Okay.
It was a neighbor was not agreeing with that. I don't think 3 inches is going to make any difference to that neighbor.
Okay.
Ma'am?
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anybody have a question for the applicant?
Well, I think she needs to identify herself.
Yes, please.
Roxana
Please say your name into the microphone.
Roxana Rodriguez, I'm the owner of the property.
Okay, I do have a question.
Say yes.
Do you know, was it like a surveyor error or was it the construction error? Do you know how they got the 3 inches off?
Well, it says there, it says that was a measurement mistake, I guess. 3 inches. Come on.
The importance of that form work, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. We'll open it up to public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll close public comments and go to the board. Gentlemen, we're talking about a
Yeah, I would make.
3-inch
I would make a
variance on a
motion to
10-foot.
approve the variance.
Okay.
Come on, Mike, it's 3 inches.
I'm not
I
gonna-
second the
I'm
motion.
not touching that with the
I would,
10-foot pole.
I will second that motion.
Wait, I beat you to it. I already said I
Okay.
second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
You're all set, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Item number 7 is also quasi-judicial. Anyone having anything to report on this item? Seeing none, this is project number 20250400052, a variance in the PUD district. Ms. Simone.
Thank you. This property is located at 131 Seaside Point, located in the Seaside Landing subdivision, which is between John Anderson and the Intracoastal. The future land use is agricultural and timberlands. The zoning is PUD, planned unit development. A portion of the property is not located within a special flood hazard, being in flood zone X, and then a small portion of the property by the canal is located in flood zone AE. And the soils are udderants, and there are no wetlands on the property. Again, this is lot 43 of Seaside Landings, having a total lot area of about 12,611 feet. This was the proposed site plan that was approved by staff, showing an 8.5 foot side setback. The minimum required side setback in the Seaside Landings development is 10 feet. So this one was most likely staff error. And then here was their foundation survey, where staff again looked at the proposed, or the actual now 8.5 foot side setback. That was again approved. And then finally, when the applicants came in with their final survey showing the same 8.5 foot side setback, we realized that the actual minimum side setback necessary was 10 feet. So again, to summarize, really this was a 12,000 square foot lot, lot 43 of Seaside Landings. The minimum required side setback is 10 feet. The 8.5 foot setback shown on the site plan was approved by both the HOA and the county staff. The side setback shown on the foundation survey was also approved by staff. And then it wasn't until we got the final survey where we realized that the side setback is actually the 10 feet and triggered the variance request. So while the setback error really was caused by staff, the final inspection cannot be approved and the CO cannot be issued without the variance approval. So going into the variance criteria, the first asking if there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions. While the property is not particularly unique for the subdivision, the 12,600 square foot lot really only has 7,700 square feet of buildable area due to the location of the mean high water line of the Intracoastal Waterway. The mean high water line effectively reduces the depth of the lot by approximately 1/3, potentially resulting in a home that is designed a little wider in order to maximize the remaining building area of the lot. So again, to emphasize that the actual dimensions of the lot do extend out into the canal. And the second guideline asks that such conditions were not created by the affirmative actions of the applicant. So although this is an after-the-fact variance, the single-family dwelling was built to the specifications of the site plan that had been approved by staff. The conditions were not created by the affirmative actions of the applicant, and they have acted at all times in good faith. Guideline 3 asks that the variance if granted would not cause substantial detriment to the public health, welfare, and safety, and staff determined that it would not. Guideline 4 asks that no variance be granted for a use of land or building that is not permitted by the article, and single-family dwellings are a permitted use in the Seaside Landing subdivision. And finally, a variance if granted shall be the minimum variance necessary to alleviate the hardship, and the requested variance is the minimum relief necessary. So your options as the board are to find that all the variance criteria as listed have been met and therefore approve project 2025040052 for a 1.5-foot side east yard setback variance from the minimum required 10-foot side yard setback at 131 Seaside Point. Or you can determine that all the variance criteria have not been met and therefore deny the project. Or you can determine that more information is needed and continue the request to a time and date certain. With that, I will close out, awaiting any questions or comments from the board, and submit my report for the record.
Thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen, I would point out that it's significant that the site plan with its error was approved by the county and the HOA, and the foundation survey was approved by the county with the error. Yep. And I'll invite the applicant to come forward if they would like to make a statement. Not necessary? Does anybody have a question for the applicant?
Do not.
Not for the applicant, no.
Seeing none, okay, thank you. We'll go to public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to make a comment? Seeing no one approach, I'll close public comments and go to the board.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Like you said, this is not the first time I've seen this, and everyone makes mistakes. I hate to even call it a variance because kind of they were approved. This is something that they were approved for, and they've done it in good faith. So I would like to make a motion to approve this variance.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 8 is a legislative item not requiring any disclosure. It's the update to the Flagler County Water Supply Facility Work Plan. Mr. Mingle.
Mr. Chairman, Adam Mangle, Growth Management Director. I've got a short presentation here, and I figured I'd do it from the podium. This relates to something it's a requirement in state statute. It's based on another agency's requirement, and it's all related to water supply. And so we had done this initially, at least the piece we're updating was done about 3 years ago when we had done a series of EAR-based amendments, evaluation and appraisal report-based amendments through the Regional Planning Council. So they had prepared this document, which we are calling the Flagler County Water Supply Facilities Work Plan. That's the FCWSFWP. I love acronyms. Planners live by acronyms. And so, and we were required to do this because, well, mainly the state said we had to. And so the irony here is that we're not a water provider. And so one of the first things I had done when I had seen this in the statute, I contacted the Water Management District and I said, hey, I got you. We don't provide water. We just took all of our utilities, we sold them off to FGUA, Florida Governmental Utility Authority, and they're now our provider for unincorporated Flagler. So if it's not FGUA, it's not City of Palm Coast, it's not us. And they came back and said, well, that's nice. You still have to do this. And so what the statute basically says is that you're mirroring what the regional water supply plan puts into its verbiage as far as population growth and water supply, and you have to do it at a local level. And so they're obligated, the district, to update their plan every 5 years. They updated theirs, is known as a 2023 North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan, or NFRWSP, And so their plan was adopted in December 12th, 2023. And when that happened, that kicked off a scheduled timing 18 months later. All the local governments that are within the planning area for the district would have to amend their local water supply plan to reflect the changes in the regional water supply plan. Well, I didn't do it yet because we were holding off because this is considered a comp plan amendment. And so we were intending to have this go with our comp plan update, which has been going on for a while now. And so we had all hopes that this would follow up, this would happen very nicely. We would meet that June 12th, 2025 deadline. Here we are, and we're looking at it, and we're not going to have our comp plan update adopted in time. And so this necessitates me coming forward with this, forward out of sequence. And so if you imagine what's going to happen here with this is that this is snapshot in time. It is updated, and I'll show you on the charts that follow, where we've updated the requisite charts in our Flagler County Water Supply Facilities Work Plan to correspond with the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan in its requisite parts, but there's a bunch of policy references that are there that refer to the 2010-2035 Flagler County Comprehensive Plan that haven't been updated. And so if everything goes well, we'll do this to check the box, and then no less than a month, 2 months, I've got to go back and do these changes to change the policy references to the new plan and make that part of the overall transmittal for the new plan update. And so we're checking the box. We're before June 12th. Here we go. Pat us on the head. Don't hit us with the newspaper. We've done good, but then we're going to have to go in and almost immediately include this as part of our adopted or transmitted update to the plan with the new policy references. Unfunded mandate, yes. Legislative overreach, potentially. Statewide planning at its best, sure. Communism, no. But it's the stuff that we have to do. These are the hoops we jump through. This is to provide where others are not planning adequately. And again, the district was very quick to point to me and in some areas in South Florida, that won't be named Miami, that have the problems where they have growth where they're not appropriately planning the water supply to correspond with the growth. Yes, sir.
So this falls under the comp plan?
It does, and the odd part about it is that we had a bit of a sidebar before we came into the meeting, and so this is adopted as Appendix A to the infrastructure element. This change does nothing to the goals, objectives, and policies. It doesn't affect a particular piece of property. There's a section in statute, I'm going to reference it wrong, I think it's maybe it's 163-3184, but there's one line in there, if I'm thinking of the right one, subpart 4, that says if you're just updating your costs, which we're not, but the idea was if you were updating your capital improvements plan, that wouldn't be something that would require a full amendment to the plan. It could be adopted by ordinance. I contend that this is one of those because we did adopt it as an appendix to an element, and this particular adoption doesn't affect any of our goals, objectives, and policies. We're not rewriting any of those. We are eventually redesignating them. We're changing the titles on those to match the comp plan update. But at this point, we're not doing anything with any of those. We also, admittedly, the regional plan can include specialized projects. So if you had something we were doing special to evaluate an additional water supply source that we don't have right now, maybe a surficial water source, we would incorporate that from the regional plan into our capital improvements element. Well, the district's plan this time has none of those projects for us or for any of the municipalities in Flagler. So there's no amendment here related to the capital improvements element or the 5-year schedule of capital improvements that are part of this. So I'm contending this really isn't the plan amendment either, but state statute for now at least says we jump through those hoops. With that bit of an intro, I'll go through these quickly. You have in your packet the amended, the update that's there. And I had a eureka moment after we published that I should go through and do a strike through and underline, and I've added that here with a slide. This is just for you to remember. This is our water supply providers map. And so, if you can see that, it's a little blurry there on that bottom left. The one thing to take away here is none of those say Flagler County, that they do have basically everybody else named, but not us. And so that we don't have an area then just showing us as a water supplier because we are not. And so even in those areas there, maybe drawing your attention, the red area that you see there around John Anderson, that's Flagler Beach's jurisdiction. There where Veranda Bay is, where Seaside Landings is, not called that anymore, but anyway. The water supply then goes down to the limits of Veranda Bay right now. And so that's in their jurisdiction. You have that area down purple in the bottom. That's where Ormond Beach comes in and provides water within Hunters Ridge, within unincorporated Flagler County. But Ormond Beach is providing water there in that area to those residents in Hunters Ridge. And so these tables were horribly long. And so I tried to find a way to break them down. These are the direct excerpts from the district's water supply plan. And so that what this was showing mainly is that some population projections that were part of this, and then along with it, it was showing then the GW is groundwater, the SW is surface water, the other is other sources, and then you have the total that was there involved with these. And maybe the thing to look at there more than anything else is percent change 2015 to 2045, and then that 2014 to 2018 average gross gallons per capita per day is what they were saying. The numbers at the top, all of these are in millions of gallons per day. What I could summarize here is that this is a reduction from what was included in the 2017 district water supply plan. The population estimates went down, and because the population estimates going down, then the water supply requirements went down. And so overall, and you'll see that here in a moment when I did the strike through and underline, I figured I'd give you that background. But then of reference here, this includes the cup numbers. Those were all also included within our own local water supply plan, just for tracking purposes. Again, we have no authority on those cups. Consumptive use permits, those all fall through the district for their review. This is a similar table as the previous one, but this one only shows domestic self-supply water use. So where before we had multiple providers under their consumptive use permits that were showing those were mainly your public waterworks, and then these are your wells. And so what this is showing here is your unincorporated population projection, 5,162 in 2020, 6,864 in 2045, 50% change 2015 to 2045, and then that change then corresponding to each of those population estimates for each of those 5-year periods, and then the corresponding million gallons per day, ending 2045 with it's 380,000 gallons a day. It's less than a full. It's not even 1 million gallons a day. To give you an idea of some perspective there with us. Again, percentage change population, they're 52%, what they're saying, and then that 56 is what they're saying, average gallons per capita per day. And then just in case you asked for it, I went ahead and put it in here. This also is part of the regional water supply plan. This is the ag irrigation self-supply water use. And so they had some math that they included with this. I didn't put in the background of how this happened or how they got to this, but they're actually showing a decrease. And I think intuitively, we'd imagine that making sense because I think their argument here is your acreage of the ag production is decreasing. So you're having other competing uses coming in, and so you're not having as much ag-related uses. And so that's where you're seeing that decrease, at least anticipated. And so this I put in because this honestly confused me. This is in their plan. This is one of the background documents they have. And what my takeaway here with this is each one of the green squares are supposed to correspond to a water treatment plant. And for the life of me, you can look there up towards the top. I think that may be corresponding to a migrant housing facility that's there, which may be under a DEP supply well. I think that may be what that's showing. And so just caveat some of the data, there's always a backstory with the data. And so I'm looking at this going, I don't know of a water treatment plant that's, say, kind of towards Mondex. You can see a couple of them there.
The one I did over there at the WP
Was
Rawls.
Domestic water supply?
Yeah. They had to go through
the
whole
well
DEP
system
permit
there. Yeah,
I think that's what they're picking up.
at Hidden Hills, right? The Hidden Hills water.
No, this one is on 2006. We built a whole bunch of worker barracks, and there
I helped you
was a
build
couple
those.
hundred people that lived there, and they had to get a DEP permit, and they had to get that whole thing. So that one is
You're right, though, I did misspeak, because he caught me on that part. I did think of that, the reverse osmosis system we've got.
Yeah, that's over at Hidden
Hidden
Hills.
Hills, I think, also may qualify. And so they may be showing that as a,
You built that one too,
RO
Mark.
out there?
yeah, that's a.
Oh, for
You
the,
built that
for the
one too,
pump, you mean
Mark.
where you can go get, where you can go get the water?
Yeah.
At that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, we did some work over
Yeah,
there.
you did that. Yeah,
Right.
and remember, I helped you build the agriculture. Okay, all right. He's here, folks.
And this, the takeaway is supposed to be on this graphic, was supposed to be, and remember what the context was, this actually was preceded in this packet by sea level rise, the sea level rise inundation scenarios. And so what you're seeing there is intermediate low, intermediate high. And so the context was supposed to be, are any of our critical water supply facilities in danger of being inundated in one of those scenarios, either the intermediate low or the intermediate high scenario? And looking at this, they did have just the one that they indicated with the black crossbar, and that's kind of right there. And I think that actually corresponds, I didn't put Chuck on the spot, but when we were looking at that, I think that may be our water treatment facility for our park at Dead Lake, I think is what that is. And we've actually taken steps, I think, to move that a little further out, so that we're trying to get a little west of that. That was part of the McCraney parcel, if you had tracked some of that through the ESL purchase. And so one of those objectives is to move that further up and away from basically the floodwaters. But just for reference, this was in there. I thought it was interesting. And then this is that strike through and underline, very busy table because of all those underlines that are incorporated in this. The old that's there is from the 2017. So any strike through that you see is from our previous edition that we had adopted. It was officially based on the 2017 Regional Supply Plan. And then our new is based on the 2023. And so the underline is based on that. And so if anything else that you have is that takeaway, Flagler Beach as the example, they're using just flat population. I don't know how fair that is, but that's what they've adopted. And so 7,044 persons, and then they were anticipated to have 8,125 in the 2035. So it's not exactly linking up completely aligned there, because you can look back as this has shifted, because the district has to do a 20-year planning period with this. We have to do at least a 10. You can look back. So if they had in the 2035 scenario 8125, now in the new 2035, they're showing 7,044, back 2 lines in the 2 columns back in the table. And so that's how you compare the numbers there. FGUA, 2304 in the old, 1617 in the new. And so those are the population estimates. And then critical for the district and our effort, the water demand on the 1 million gallons per day on the right-hand side. I've lost everybody, right? This is exciting
back.
stuff.
Long time ago.
Way back.
Exciting stuff. Man, this is the best ever, isn't it? No, anyway. And then the bottom line, of course, is the 149, 355, 2045, and then 14.3 million gallons per day. And that is, that's for all of us. That's everybody together. Yes, sir. Sorry.
The aquifers that we're getting the water from, I mean, are we getting any saltwater intrusion at this point?
There is, and so there was a graphic that I didn't share with you, but the chloride count is significant. And what we're seeing is, and it's a contour map that's part of this submittal, and they classify it as, I'm going to state it wrong, but it's like a high-risk classification. And basically anything east of 95, with some exceptions, but there's a growing contour line that my perception is that it's creeping further westward, is basically what's happening. You have other pockets, I don't want to just say that, because there's actually some on the west end that also have high chloride counts. But we've got it showing where before it wasn't. And intuitively what's happening is that's because we're drawing down the fresh water, the salt water's coming in.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Adam, excuse the pun, but let me see if I understand this. You guys are going to be in a lot of hot water if you don't do this right away?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so
Potentially.
I propose that we do a continuance to study all these important documents.
Yes, thank you so much for that. You're mean. Y'all are mean. The last one that I have in my strike through and underlined is and this is also in the plan, and this one shows the domestic side. So where before I had public supply, or the public providers, and then this is your wells. With that, I'll close. This one, we provide a recommendation because we don't want you to deliberate on it. We don't want it to be continued. But we do recommend that you recommend to the Board of County Commissioners approval of the update to the Flagler County Water Supply Facilities Work Plan. And I'll attempt to answer any questions after that exciting presentation. Thank you.
I understand why you're doing it, but at the same token, nobody's taking into account the decrease in the water supply. I mean, this is just not going to come out of the sky. And I mean, the more population you have, and the more that you're sucking it out from the aquifers, you're going to have more and more intrusion. And I just don't see how this is going to balance out over time. I mean, we have a population growth which demands water, and I don't see us being able to have a source in the long run. I mean, I won't live that long. But for the future generations, I really don't know.
We're doing a great job of accounting.
Yeah, but
counting all the
the
beans.
problem is,
Well,
how do we go? How do we move forward and find ways of treatments that the water become usable?
Well,
I mean, this is something that we looked at years ago when I was in university. And, now it's coming home to roost. And in another 20 years, it's going to be a lot worse. So all these charts, they really don't mean anything. Because at the end of the day, we do not have enough water. And it's not that we can go like this and get water.
the water management districts were created to solve this problem.
I
And
understand
we've been
that.
paying taxes to them for many, many years, decades, and they haven't solved anything.
They
But you
haven't
know
solved
what their
anything.
answer to this problem is? I was in a meeting with them several years ago. Their answer to this problem is to pipe water from the St. Johns River over here to Flagler. They are telling all the counties to pipe water out of the St. Johns River.
Okay, and then that's going to be
That's their answer.
another effect. I
well,
mean,
there was also a lot of talk, I remember years ago, in some countywide planning stuff we had about desalination. Those aspects keep getting better, and then the conservation on the consumer side. But Mike, at this point, we can't solve it in this boardroom.
well, no, we're not going to
And-
solve. We're
and-
not going to solve it. I mean, we're
like
here
you said,
to
we
talk.
just drink the water you got right now, and hope you don't live long enough to drink the salt water, right?
No, well, I mean, if you look at countries like Israel, they figured it out.
Yeah.
This is the legacy, and I think this is important because, and I kind of, maybe I've been a little bit funny or derisive about this, but, this chart here for us has little meaning. But in areas of South Florida, Southwest Florida, your SWs have numbers in them that are flipped. They're higher than your GW. Your groundwater withdrawal is less than your surface water. And then your other sources, let's not talk, bad about it. Reclaimed could be a possibility that you're drinking the stuff that you're flushing. You're just drinking it, later after it's been cleaned. And so that, and we've heard the numbers ourselves. The water we're drinking now out of the aquifer is easily hundreds of thousands of years old, probably more like millions in some cases, but it's getting younger because we're withdrawing it. Again, we got great numbers on how we're withdrawing it. I had participated in a group that was trying to solve this, and we realized that they very readily water doesn't observe boundaries. The water that we get is coming. A lot of it's from Okefenokee. And it's coming down in those layers, those subsurface layers. And so the what if happens, what if Brunswick starts doing something more? And then we've got a problem. And so it very quickly identified the cross-jurisdictional issues there. But again, we're great at identifying the problem. We're not so good with solutions. Final point, I suppose, is that I've got a friend who's out in Colorado, and y'all may know some folks out there too. And he's telling me, our future, and very much the district's talking about this, but in very quiet terms right now. We've got cheap water. They don't. When they buy property, they buy water rights. And the water rights, in some cases, are more expensive, more valuable than the property itself. And so you actually see a whole exchange system with the water rights. And he's saying that, that's been something that's been eyed for a long time here by not just our district, but others, and that, we really need to pay our true cost. And, effectively right now, we're not. And so one of the things you had heard if you were at the commission meeting, I think this is Water Conservation Month. Again, we're back at that. You do want to conserve your usage at home, but the other part of it is so cheap. That leaky faucet, that running toilet, so what? But maybe now, with some of the discussions that Palm Coast has been having, some of the discussions I think that we're having related to this, it's something we should all be talking about.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to add a few comments. Yes. I think this board has more ability to crack into this problem than you realize. Yes, the Water Management District is eyeing surface waters, that is like the St. John's, and piping water out of its basin is highly problematic from an ecological perspective. Right. But the real problem is the lawns. That is the reason we're having saltwater intrusion. It's not the population, it's not brushing your teeth. It's everybody wants a lawn that looks like a golf course. They use Floratam, which it drinks more water than almost anything. So when you make your land development regulations, or when you recommend them to the county commission, when you recommend comp plan amendments to the county commission, you may want to consider, we have the home rule power and authority in the county to regulate lawns to, I don't know what the solution is, but we have the power to require certain types of landscaping. So keep that in mind. There's no magic wand, but I think there's a way to influence the dilemma.
Yeah, well, we did that we're doing that on Island Estates where I live, because the district raised the rates for reclaimed water. And one of the last things I was involved in was pulling out all the bushes or shrubbery that was sucking up water like crazy and going more to a xeriscape. We're just in the process of putting in coquina sand, doing xeriscape with desert type plants versus the other type of plants which just suck up water, even though it's reclaimed water. But the district, I think, I don't remember exactly the dollar amount, but it became a lot more expensive. And I spent the time, I'm just crazy, and I just took out all the grass I had on the side of my house, and I did a xeriscape. And that's something that we have to look at in the future, and it should be something that goes into the comp plan, because at the end of the day, you can't sustain it.
Yeah, and the county, the unincorporated part of the county isn't the problem, by and large. I don't know anybody where I live, anywhere near where I live, that waters a lawn. Yeah. Nobody. But you look out in Palm Coast and Flagrant Beach, places like that, and golf courses, so anyway. Was that your presentation?
Yes, sir. We do need to open this for public comment.
Okay. We'll open this to public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and thank Mr. Mingle for that riveting presentation.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. I'd like to make a motion to continue. Oh, I'm sorry.
We wouldn't have approved it anyway.
Couldn't get a second on that. I don't think you get a second.
To approve this document, is that what you want to call it? Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next item is staff comments. Any other staff comments?
I want to command the podium just one more time, and I'm going to look also to Sean to, I'll be quick on my part. Senate Bill 180 is coming through, and look at it in your leisure. There is a particular section there, Section 28, that talks about counties that were affected by Debbie, another hurricane, and Milton. And we were Milton, and because we were, and basically the three hurricanes that are named included the entire, all 67 counties in the state of Florida. If you were within one of those, then the language bars us in this Senate Bill 180 from updating our comprehensive plan or land development regulations in a more restrictive manner all the way through to 2027. Now, the inexplicable part is that this particular Senate bill that's going through is retroactive to last August. And so we're already trying to figure out what that's going to do to us with a couple of things we've done. One to note out loud is the Land Development Code's changes to the tree protection regulations we had. Those were adopted afterwards. Airport zoning, something more recent. And even more recent, our effort to update the comprehensive plan. And the language also within the rest of, not Section 28, but the rest of this Senate bill is geared very heavily towards a petitioner then that objects to the land use action as being more restrictive, more onerous. And it aligns then, they're able to recover attorney's fees. It's very much similar to what I've seen. Otherwise, I'm sure Sean's going to agree to it.
Excuse me, Adam, more restrictive about what?
Just as to the development, as to a development regulation. And so if it's broadly. And that, I think I'm saying the right term, it's ill-defined in statute. It's kind of in the eye of the beholder.
This is a Senate bill going through the process.
It has been enrolled. And so at the state it's in right now, it is awaiting the governor's signature. And so it's not a matter of if.
The House has already passed it.
Yes, sir. And so we believe it's a matter of when. And so we're talking right now, trying to figure out the next steps. Sean, have I left anything out?
Yeah, well, not much, but I'll just follow up. The bill passed both houses almost unanimously, and very close to unanimous. And it's this bill, this huge sprawling bill about helping people after storms and expediting the permitting when they have to fix a damaged home. But it goes well beyond that to what Adam mentioned and says that any land development regulation or comprehensive plan amendment that is more restrictive or burdensome since last August until October of 2027 is void. So our tree regulations are void ab initio from the get-go.
Is that whole or just in part, just the more restrictive parts?
You could try to parse it, but the easiest way to look at it is the entire thing is more restrictive. Certainly, that's what a lawyer would argue. In addition, our airport zoning, am I missing anything? There might have been one more. Oh, well, we're trying to adopt a comp plan. Well, we're dead in the water. We can't do anything with our comprehensive plan that we were hoping to until October 1st of 2027. Now, I don't know if this water supply plan as a exhibit to the comprehensive plan's infrastructure element is any more restrictive than what we already have. I don't view it that way, but certainly land development regs, they're done, and it's for the entire state of Florida. So under the guise of helping homeowners who were, hurricane victims, the state has completely upended local planning.
And there's good stuff in there. The other preceding 27 sections before you get to section 28 is pretty good. But when you get to 28, you're kind of like, oh, okay. And that's a zinger. I mean, that's pretty significant. So just something for you to be aware of. We've talked some, maybe we may just go ahead and adopt the comp plan just to see where it goes. So we'll keep you up to date on it. Simone, you have any comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to board comments. Any board comments? If not, we'll open it up to public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to comment? Come state your name. We remind you that you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Raymond Royer. I'm from Panders Hill. I'm trying to get some clarity. I did my appeal, and before I can go possibly reapply for my pool and pump house, I'm trying to get clarity because I don't know how to fill out this application. I was told at the hearing the chairman was kind of throwing out there, maybe if I put the pump house behind the wall, would it change the variance issue? Because right now the pump house is actually flush with the side of the house. But it was no clarity of saying yes or no. Also, I mentioned, my variance was given because I'm under the 9,000 square foot. I'm only, I think, 7,300 square feet, just a little over that. And so I was asking for hardship. And then I was given, after my second hearing with Hughes, I was given a shed permitting policy, which permitted me to build a 61 to 100 square feet constructed building. And and then I went to show pictures, and I was just wondering if I can show you pictures, because the young lady that was disputing it, after she closed, she was wishing she could have seen the pictures. So I don't know if you gentlemen have a
Mr.
problem
Chairman?
seeing the visual pictures that I was going
Mr.
to
Chairman?
kind of build.
Sean, maybe you could help me with this. Is it appropriate for us to open this discussion on an item that the neighbors and other people would be affected without giving them notice? Because it sounds like we're almost rehearing something. I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate for us to flush out a detail in this public meeting like that.
Well, he has the First Amendment right to say just about anything he wants.
No,
but
I know he does.
Yeah, but certainly you don't want to comment because it is, as you said, a quasi judicial matter requiring notice. And,
I think
and you don't
that-
have a proper application before you.
Right.
The guidance should come from staff.
That's exactly what I'm thinking, that, sir, I think you have to take this up with staff.
Well,
And
I took it
then,
up with my lawyer, and earlier when I had my hearings in front of you, you broke that policy with the quasi hearing. One of you gentlemen reached out and pointed to a pool builder out here when I was trying to explain what I was doing, and I guess he was shaking his head that what I was building was ridiculous, and you kind of confirmed what was going on. So my lawyer, I was down in Orlando with him, he reviewed all the tapes, and also at my last hearing in front of the county commissioners, there was comments made that there was notes taken that I was saying I was going to build a 10-foot building. And Mark, me and you went back and forth on the height, and I think we got clarity that I was only going 8 feet high in a wall. For some reason, we got lost. Well, that came up in this hearing that I had a repeal on, that I was building a 10-foot wall, and I tried to be clear that I don't know where the misunderstanding is coming from, but that was cleared out, I think, on the first hearing. So I feel that I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to build here. And again, if you can, and the pictures that I tried to say to the, and even my lawyer looked at this last hearing I had, and he actually wants to go forward and litigate this. I said to him, and we talked, and he said it'd be better if we exhaust and maybe go through another trial of trying to get this permitted, and then we exhausted it, and then it would look better in the courts. But he also looked at the recent lawsuits that he had with the hammocks, disputing the 9,000 square foot setbacks and all that stuff. And he said, we have a case, we can move forward on this because you do have hardship. And again, I'd love to show you the pictures, just one picture. I mean, like I said, Mrs. Wallace, I even asked, she was wishing she could see the pictures. She's one of the plaintiffs. Just one picture.
He's talking about litigation. This should end
Yeah.
right here and now.
Yeah,
All right.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'd rather-
I don't think you're doing yourself justice by us, because I think we're going to be violating other people's rights by listening and going back and forth on it. But have you talked to staff to get clarity? Have you actually went to them and say, what is it I can do and can't do?
Well, when I started with this, I tried to get clarity. I went through what I call the workshop. They call it whatever abbreviations they give it, when we have the workshop. And I thought when I put it in the corner, I never heard the word when I had it in a quarter that the building would be considered over the 4 feet wall requirement. Now, maybe on the corner it would be because it was on the border of the property, of my property line. Now, when I moved it in, that would take the subject out of the matter But this recent hearing that I had, that's why they were saying if I put the wall and wrap it around completely and put it inside.
This is what staff is telling you.
This is what the chairman brought up. I didn't get clarity yet where we're going, but again, I don't even know how to present my planning because I have no clue.
Can I make a serious suggestion again?
Yeah, go ahead.
I
Go
think
ahead, Mark.
the consensus from what I see from all of us up here is that we not engage back and forth on the particulars.
Yeah.
Because it would in jeopardy yourself
Okay.
as far as your rights and definitely other people's rights.
Okay.
Instead, my suggestion is that you talk to staff
Yeah.
and see if you can flush these details out with them. They're very good at interpreting what happened
Yeah.
and how that applies to you. And then from there, you can take whatever action you want, whether
Okay.
it's further legal action,
All right,
whatever.
thank you, Mark.
But to come at a public notice, and believe me, I've been there myself, with the
Yeah.
county with that. I get frustrated and
Yeah,
I've walked
yeah.
into a meeting and I want to be heard on something, but sometimes it's not the right forum. And I think that tonight, doing what you want to see pictures and talk about the particulars with
Yeah.
us becomes problematic for everybody.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you,
you.
board.
I highly recommend get back with the staff. I'm
Go ahead.
sure that there's ways, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll probably reapply and go in that and try to exhaust my my variances and my excuses. Thank you.
All right, thanks, sir. Anyone else from the public wishing to comment on an agenda item that we did not cover in tonight's meeting? Please come forward, state your name. We remind you that you have 3 minutes.
Angela Smith, Flagler Beach. I'm following up regarding the question I posed during the April 8th meeting. As a 25-year CTE, career and technical education teacher, I must mention the conversation regarding lawn maintenance as the area of focus for Flagler County's water challenge. I love it. CTE professionals research best practices and develop lesson plans. My focus is underserved students to provide them the platform to pitch solution. This is an example of what I have to offer. So that's just a side note. I volunteered as Affordable Housing Advisory Committee member beginning February 2024. I began with one question: where is the path for the underserved person to build relevant skills to become financially stable and afford their own home? During my year of service as a volunteer, I received redirection from AHAC management to take my concern to other departments, including HUD, the Economic Development Team, and the Planning and Development Board, because my concern is not part of Affordable Housing Committee. I explained that my solution falls under the option K, which include transient neighborhoods. So my point is, even though it was on the list of, it didn't matter. They kicked me out. Mr. Mangle, maybe he can correct or verify if my request made last month, and I'm continuing it now, falls under the Planning and Development Board function stated as, it's one of the bullet items that begins, I'll just read it: monitor and oversee the operation, effectiveness, and statutory of the county land development code and recommendation amendments to the county commission that are consistent with the comprehensive plan. That's a whole mouthful. If I'm trying just not to be too wordy, but if I can't do my plan here in Flagler County, where I plan to live, God willing, the next 50 years of my life, I am taking it on a road show, and my lesson plan will happen. But why not here? I remain hopeful that we can find a way to empower the underserved individuals. So the middle class creates scalable models for building supported communities. But I'll just cut it off right there. You get my message. Oh, darn. It was under 3 minutes, though. So I know that's a whole lot to talk about. I don't think we won't find a solution today, but I don't know if you have any feedback for me.
We appreciate your comments.
All right. Well, I'm hoping that maybe the team, Mr. Mangle and the team, can consider my question and maybe respond back to me on whether or not that's something that falls under.
Under our jurisdiction.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Take care.
Thank you.
We'll close public comments and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We stand adjourned.